1874, the podcast with Bardell and Gregg Evans.
Hello, welcome to 1874, the podcast in association with NordVPN. You can grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to www.1874.io/NordVPN. If you do that, you'll get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and you'll get 4 months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and as validated by my dad, because I got my dad to do it at the weekend because he wanted to watch some of the football on one of the streaming services. So I got my dad to do it and he did it. So at least someone's done it this week, Greg, because we forgot to actually put NordVPN in the podcast last week. I'm Dan Bardell, joined by the Athletics' Gregg Evans. And to be honest, this is probably going to act a little bit as a post-match show, a match review for the Burnley game. I imagine you'll see this quite a few times in the opening weeks of the season, or the opening half of the season, because Villa will be playing a lot of games Thursday, Sunday. So I imagine we'll utilise this show as the post-match show rather than doing shows for the sake of it, post-match shows for the sake of it. Greg, how are you?
I'm very well, Dan. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, mate. Really enjoyed my day at Turf Moor yesterday. Great result for Villa, and I saw some aspects of Villa's play yesterday that I really, really enjoyed. I thought the system switch up was pretty clever as well, albeit it might not have been unexpected to you, but it was unexpected to me. And I just thought the game plan was good, and Villa, other than really a 10-15 minute spell at the start of the second half, limited Burnley and just played some really nice football, Greg.
Just really, really impressive overall. I mean, so many positives to take from the game, and something that we'd been talking about over the summer. I know it's very early into the season and it's a very small sample size to work on, but something that we were pondering, wasn't it, was whether Villa could do it Thursday to Sunday, and the fact that they've scored 8 goals in 3 days, 4 days, because it was a Wednesday game, shows that Villa are sort of making that progress. They're getting towards being able to handle the Premier League and the Europa Conference League. And yeah, just so many positive things to take from it. I thought they passed the ball really well.
Yeah, really good.
Turning into an incredibly well-oiled machine. Every player seems to know exactly what they are doing in that system now. And even as you say, Danielle, with the system change, they look very comfortable and confident. I think what we're seeing is bringing a little bit more out of Matty Cash, scoring the 2 goals, and Luca Dean as attackers rather than defenders. And Cash is somebody that we've discussed at length in previous pods, saying, is he going to be an Emery player? Is he going to fit into the Emery team? We spoke about Digne last week, didn't we? We ticked that sort of conversation off. But the 2 of them are thriving, and the 3 at the back look really, really comfortable and confident too.
Yeah, it kind of negates the loss of wings, I think, having the 3 centre-backs in, and like you say, having the wing-backs. I did tweet before the game, I thought they'd be really important in that game, and they were crucial, but both of them in the end. I guess what that system does, it brings in the extra defender, and I guess probably 10 of Villa's 11 you could pick near enough. It was always the right midfield slot where Bailey plays, where you were like, do we need someone else there who's going to play in that position? It kind of took away. Ironically, Bailey scored 2 goals in the lead of this game, but it kind of took away, not a problem, but took away that aspect of the team chat of how Villa were going to line up. I just thought it meant Diaby and McGinn could play really high up. It meant Cash and Luca Dean could bomb forward. There was always the extra centre back if we found ourselves in trouble. I guess if we got a centre back injury, that system might come under a bit of strain. I thought it offered extra protection to Olsen. Yeah. As well, coming in for a one-off game. It's probably one of his better games in goal. He made a really good save, actually, at 2-1 in the second half. Robin Olsen did. And just all round, I thought it was a really nice performance from Villa. I took in the game from like a different vantage point to where I would usually take in the game, albeit I did have a massive bollard in front of me, as you'll have seen on social media. But I could just see the zip that Villa played, with the way they moved the ball around, the 1-2s, the clever little movement, the way they play the ball into the channels, knock it to Watkins. We just played some really, really nice stuff. And it's the kind of football that over the years I've watched other teams and just thought, why can't Villa play like that?
Yeah.
What do we do in training all week? You can just see that so much stuff is worked on. And I was sat right behind Emery, and he literally doesn't stop micromanaging the whole game. It's just, I absolutely loved yesterday. I've got to say, I really did.
Yeah, as I say, so many positives to take from it. It's good, isn't it, when you get that sort of side-on view and you're quite close to Emery. We're very fortunate when we're in the press box, because we can see pretty much everything he's doing and saying during games. Certainly at games like Chelsea and Brentford, when you're just a little bit closer to him because the press box is very close to the dugout, you get to hear a little bit more of what he's saying as well. But that was the one thing that really stood out when he came to the club, was that he micromanages everything. He's on the dugout, he's on the in his technical area, guiding literally every passage of play. And the look of, he had a face like thunder when Burnley scored, and that's because he's an absolute perfectionist, and the fact that Villa won 3-1, what will be going through his head today will be the fact that Burnley scored. I know that for a fact. And, he wants absolute perfection from his team. But the first half, I mean, Villa weren't far off perfection, really.
Really good.
They were brilliant to watch. I mean, without sounding like getting too carried away here, it's almost like you were looking at a team, really pushing to be one of the top teams in the division at that point. They were that comfortable. They dominated the ball. Defence looked like they knew exactly what they were doing. The two in midfield, Kamara and Luiz, brilliant.
Those two are a joke in midfield.
I was thinking of this. I was thinking of this morning, actually, when I woke up. I don't know why Douglas Luiz and Boubacar Kamara are on my mind as soon as I woke up. But I was just thinking, when you look across the division and you've got, Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo and Gallagher at Chelsea, then you've got Tonali and Guimaraes at Newcastle. You've got Kovacic and Rodri at Man City, Rice and Partey, and so on and so on. And I'm looking at Kamara and Luiz, and I'm thinking, do you know what? They're growing into a match for almost anyone now.
Yeah.
And for Aston Villa, no disrespect, a club who have only finished in the top half of the table once in the last 13 years, to now have a midfield like that is so strong, that's looking very much Champions League ready. It feels like Villa are very much on the up with their squad now, certainly with the starting 11 or the best sort of 12, 13, 14 players in the team now. It's a very, very strong small group. If they can add a couple more players over the next few windows, I think Villa are going to be really well positioned. But that just going back to the first half, it just felt like Villa had everything going for them. Matt Cash was actually the third most highest position player.
He was so high.
He was playing effectively as in the position that Leon Bailey would have played. It's like and showed from his days as a winger that he can get on the end of things, that he can be a real nuisance in the box. And I just feared for him a little bit when Emery first came in, because I didn't think that he would be able to express himself as an attacker as much as he was able to yesterday. But great for him and great for him to get a couple of goals and stay in the manager's thoughts for the time being, I think.
Yeah, a few people in my fantasy football league had him, unfortunately. I don't know why.
I haven't played this year because it just ruins my life, but he must have got a lot of points.
I think he got somewhere near 20 points this week. Obviously, Villa didn't keep a clean sheet at the end. At one point, he was on for a huge haul. Villa had kept a clean sheet as well. I guess with Matty Cash as well. I think he deserves a lot of credit, because I think he's openly said himself he struggled to adapt to Emery's methods when he first came in. And I used to watch when Matty Cash would bomb forward, and I used to see Emery and he'd absolutely lose his temper on the sideline with Matty Cash. But he's adapted his game and he's done that tuck-in role when he's needed to. Yesterday, he was just told, you go forward, you're going to be a massive part of how we play attacking-wise today. And he produced the goods, and he's done a lot of training with Robert Lewandowski. That second goal was a good finish.
That was brilliant, wasn't it?
Some finish. That was a striker's finish. That was technique.
I mean, we've got to dissect the goal a little bit deeper first, because that second goal is incredible. I mean, there was about 20 passes leading up to the goal. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was patient play out from the back, and then when they didn't quite get the passing option that they wanted going forward, they would find another passing option and be patient and slow. And then Diaby had that little, I think I'm right in thinking it was Diaby when he sort of did that Cruyff turn in the middle of the park, and it kind of just lost a couple of players in the build up to it. And I think that's what you've got now with Villa. You've got some lovely players that can pass it between themselves. Carlos and Konza to an extent. Pau Torres definitely.
I thought Konza was brilliant in the first half.
It worked, didn't it? That position worked for him. And Kamara and Luiz. The five of them between them are going to pass the ball really nicely, I think. But then what you have in Diaby, and hopefully more from Leon Bailey, if we can see that in the future, is just that little moment of magic where he can wriggle away from a defender or spin out from a couple of players, and it just frees up so much space. And then that kind of helped Villa in their second goal. And yeah, as you say, a brilliant finish from Matt Cash. But just looking back to last year, there were a couple of occasions when he was allowed to go forward. I think it was the Palace game.
Yeah, he got an assist
where he set up Watkins or the own goal. Was it an own goal? Yeah. But then the week after, I think Villa were playing Bournemouth, and the game plan was completely different. It was to sit very deep, make sure that there were only 3 players ahead of the ball when Villa were out of possession, because Bournemouth had such a threat on the counter-attack. So I think that's what you're going to see from time to time, depending on the opponents. Cash and Digne or Cash and Moreno, when he's back fit, are going to have different roles to play. And look, that's the benefit now of having a manager who's been in charge for coming up to a year. He's had a lot of time with the players to show them this is plan A, this is plan B, this is what happens if you go down to 10 men, this is what happens when we're a goal up, this is what happens when we're a goal down. The players all know what system to turn to now. And I just think, just finally, when Villa come up against your Evertons and your Burnleys and your teams that are going to be in the lower half, it's going to be light work for Villa this season. The challenge is beating the teams that finished above them last year.
Yeah, I mean, the building blocks for those kind of teams were put in place at the end of last season. Villa obviously out and being at home. You know, they dispatched teams that you would want them to and would expect them to with relative ease. They'd see out games relatively comfortably. As well, in the end, they've seen out yesterday quite comfortably. Was there anything that worried you in the game? Because, you know, half time I went in, I was absolutely buzzing. I was like, this is so good. We've played so well here. Just got to get the next goal, and the game's done. Second half starts, Burnley score straight away. A little bit of I'd have question marks over the defending of Pau Torres. I think he made it so easy for him to turn and shoot. You know, block off the goal. He blocked off the wrong side. You want to block off the goal.
It's the physicality side of thing that has always been the issue with him. You know, it's the one sort of drawback that scouts and clubs of a real high level have always said. The physical side, he isn't quite as robust as you would like as a centre half. What you get in return, but you know, by contrast, is his incredible passing ability. So from time to time, he's amazing, isn't he? He's brilliant to watch. And I mean, if Villa are going to dominate games, then and create more and build up more opportunities compared to give chances away, then he's going to be used more often in that respect. But look, you want your centre halves to be tough and strong. On that sole moment, it didn't look great, but I'm not too concerned. I think the bigger picture is Villa are going to be fine defensively.
Yeah, one of my mates was having a pop at Olsen for the goal, which I thought was a little bit high. He did get a hand on it, but I don't think he was the culprit for that goal. I
think Olsen, and look, me and you can agree. We neither of us are very comfortable with him in goal.
I did think he was better yesterday.
I think in general, though, the name, as horrible as it sounds, when you see that his name's on the team sheet, there are nerves. One, because Emi Martinez is so brilliant, and two, because it hasn't quite worked for Olsen at Villa. But I think if he's going to play more games this season, because there are going to be so many more games, hopefully for Villa. So he's going to need the support of the supporters, and hopefully they can, you know, start to get behind him. He made a couple of saves. Yeah, I mean, that helps, doesn't it? It's going to give him the confidence. He made a couple of decent saves. I think he's worked on his footwork, definitely starting to pass the ball better. His distribution was, you know, very, very suspect under Emery at the start. I just remember the Man United game. It was such an in the cup. It was just such an awful one for him. But
awkward game that was.
But you know, it's difficult for players. If you remember, Villa's defenders were struggling passing out from the back, and so was Dendoncker and Louise and Kamara. They all had individual bad moments. So it's just something you have to, you know, expect. But hopefully, Emi Martinez is back sooner rather than later.
You got any news on that?
No, sorry. I'll try and update throughout the week. Hoping that transfer window closes as well as quickly as possible.
I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that.
I'm only playing, but you know, you want him back. You want the top players in the team, don't you?
I will say for Olsen, I thought this yesterday actually. There have been a few players in the past that for years weren't really rated, by the Villa fans, and then suddenly they'd managed to turn themselves into a cult hero. I think of Alan Hutton, for example. I never really particularly rated Alan Hutton as a player. Attitude, unbelievable, resilience, work rate, all that stuff, brilliant. But I never rated him as a footballer. And then he suddenly became like this cult hero and became really, really popular. You never know with Arsenal. If he does play a few games this season and he does okay, like some players just come from nowhere sometimes to become a little bit of a cult hero. And I'm hoping that happens with him. Villa would have had the opportunity to get another keeper in the summer, and they haven't done it. So Emery obviously has a form of trust in him, or has seen something that he likes. Otherwise, he would have been replaced, wouldn't he? They would have got a sub goalkeeper in.
Yeah, and look, to be fair to Emery, he has always bigged him up. He's always offered positive words and encouragement, and yeah, that is the manager's job to build up players, and certainly within the media when questions are asked. But I think with Emery, I do find that he's very honest with players. That he talks about if he's not interested in them, or if he's not into them, he'll find a smart way of kind of avoiding the question. With Olsen, he has always been pretty consistent, and he's backed him. So,
yeah. What about Luca Day? Now we've got an assist yesterday, and again, it was a really nice goal for Villa. Villa had been under the cosh for 10-15 minutes in that second half, and probably got the third a little bit against the run of play, I would say, with how the game was going, and just popped the balloon for Burnley. That was their day over at that point. The deflation amongst where I was sitting, and Luca Dean's been involved in a lot of goals in recent weeks. We thought he'd be on his way, but things change very fast in football. It probably now looks like he won't be going anywhere.
I mean, I've been very consistent with my thoughts around it.
I have as well, and I might be wrong.
I've always said that, one, I don't think he will definitely go, which it doesn't look like he is at the moment. And two, if he did go, I'm not sure Villa would be able to get a better replacement for him. Look, in time they might, it might be proved wrong, and I'm happy to be proved wrong if that's the case, because essentially we all want Villa to evolve and get even stronger, and if they can get a better left back in than Luca Dean, then so be it, great. But I just think the last few performances have reminded a few people that he's a decent player, and if you get him in the right system with the right support around him, and he doesn't have to defend too much, and he's able to deliver balls into the box, it's going to benefit the team. He's got a nice relationship with Ollie Watkins now. Ollie Watkins, by the way, I think he's now got 55 goal contributions since in the Premier League since joining Villa. Only Harry Kane has scored more out of any Englishman. I think James Maddison's got the same in terms of goals and assists. So, more plus points for Watkins. But yeah, to go back to Digne, I'd like to see him given a few more games. I'd like it if he sticks around, because I do think he can be a weapon for Villa.
Yeah, another assist yesterday. My question was, it's all well and good doing it against a really poor Everton at home, and then Hibernian, which was a testimonial game at times, in fairness. But to be fair to him yesterday, he come up with the productivity in a tough away game at Burnley at a really important time, crucial time in the game. He's picked out the right pass, and we scored a nice goal, and that's won us the game in the end. So credit to him. I find this happens quite a lot. I'm probably one of the least critical Villa fans there's ever been. But when I do find someone to criticise, they suddenly hit the form of their life. And look at this, definitely having his best spell in a Villa shirt. At the moment, I had a few tweets yesterday about Luca Dean directed at me on Twitter, or X as it's called now. So yeah,
it's just about finding continuity, isn't it? Now, and consistency for him. He's got to keep playing well, else
He's got a very good player, chomping at the bit when he's fit.
Yeah, and look, we've seen the impact that Alex Moreno had. I'm looking forward to seeing him back in the Villa team, because he's quick and certainly a player that Emery believes in. So it's exciting, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Watkins. I just wanted to touch on him because the headlines will be he's missed a sitter, but actually, like you say, another goal contribution. He leads the line so well. People don't realise how good his link-up play is. His link-up play in the last 12 months has come on so far. He takes in balls, really, that he's got no right to take, and lays them off and makes it look really, really easy and really simple. I think his all-round game, for a modern-day centre-forward playing on your own, he's perfect for Emery. He's perfect for Villa. I think he's perfect for the modern game as well. Okay, he hasn't scored a Premier League goal yet, but he's always involved in most of the good things Villa do, and that's what you want from a lone striker. You might not score every week, but if you're enabling other people to pop up with goals as well, which is what he did yesterday, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, and look, from a selfish point of view, he will want to get on the score sheet.
Of
He'll
course.
want to get the goals because strikers essentially are judged on their goals. We know that. We know that if he keeps scoring goals, he's going to be within the chance of an England recall, which is a big motivation of his. But yeah, he's working really well for the team. He's well liked. Emery loves him, wants him to sign the contract extension, which has been discussed for some time now. The run and the movement for Cash's goal was great, wasn't it? Another assist that he got. And
I haven't seen it back. Was it going in, or did Cash need to
no, I think it would have just gone wide. Yeah, I think it was going wide. And I think he might have gone for it. I think he certainly tried to score, didn't it?
I don't think it was.
It wasn't a cross, was it?
No.
But yeah, fair play to Cash for getting on the end of it. But yeah, it's those key involvements, isn't it? He runs the defence. He's quick. He never stops closing down. So he's good when Villa are trying to press out from the front. He's an aerial threat now, as we've seen with his goals. But he also has a big impact at set pieces. He's one of Villa's strongest headers. So he, defensively, he does help out from time to time, which you probably don't notice too often, but it does make a big impact. I just feel, in general now, Villa have got all their departments pretty much sorted. It would be great to have another striker to turn to.
Sure, I just think you look at that bench.
Sorry. I mean, in terms of departments, I mean as a football club. The ownership are great. The scouting and data network is very solid. The coaching team now is excellent. Video analysis side of things, he's really good. Set piece coach Austin McPhee and his assistants are working really well. The playing team in general is good. The youth setup's good. Yeah. I just feel like Villa as a football club, have got a lot of things going for them at the moment. They've got it all, set up now, and it's just adding, little bits to the edges to make them even better. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, aren't I? Where were we?
I'm not really sure. I can ask you. I want to ask you about Zaniolo, though, so I might as well do that quick word on him. I was impressed with him when he came on.
Looked good. Looked like he's somebody who's got that little bit of unpredictable edge, maybe a little bit greedy in the moments that mattered. Felt like he could have passed to Watkins with the chance that he went for, but I liked his footwork. I liked his movement. I thought that he's somebody he's just going to give that unpredictable edge. I think whether he starts games, whether he comes off the bench, he's going to be a good addition to the squad. And with Coutinho probably moving to Qatar, as I've been reporting for quite some time, and Buendia out injured, he's going to be pretty vital, I think.
It reminded me a bit of David Ginola.
Yeah. Do you know what I was thinking, actually?
Because Ginola was actually, people don't realise how big he was. He was a strong guy. He's also a tall guy.
Similar movements, yeah.
Quite a unique player at that time. Like, you don't see many 6 foot plus wingers at the time. Zaniolo, he's about 6'3". He's stocky. He's got a powerful shot. He just reminded me a bit of David Ginola yesterday. The way he was walking around as well.
Yeah, and the height thing, has been an issue at Villa. Villa were on average not on average, in terms of players under, I think, 182 centimeters. Is that right? And 1.82 meters. Yeah,
about what I am.
Yeah, in terms of players under that height.
Yeah.
Over that height, Villa had the fewest amount in their teams
small side still,
on average last year. So look, forget the metrics. In general, they're a small side, and they needed to address that this year. So to get a player in like that, will help from time to time. But yeah, he looked good, skillful player. If he can stay fit, obviously injuries have been a bit of an issue for him in previous years. But if he can stay fit, he could not be Villa's wild card, because we knew how good he was going to be when he was a younger player in Italy, but somebody maybe who hasn't arrived with all the hype, but could end up being a very important player or very exciting player for Villa.
He threw himself into a tackle, like a block tackle, and came out with the ball, which I was really pleased with that, because he had, players sometimes who silky players who you think, they've had injuries, they're not going to put themselves about. He really put himself into that challenge and came out with the ball. So yeah, I really liked that. In a minute, we're going to talk about why Villa are selling their academy players. But before we do that, let's hear about NordVPN again.
If you guys are getting fed up with missing live football, then our new show sponsor, NordVPN, might be able to help you out. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and smart TV. If you want to watch, let's say, some US content, it allows you to appear like you're in that country. And while you're connected, no one can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. The service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty dab handy. A part of NordVPN supporting 1874, the Aston Villa channel, they have given us an exclusive deal of up to 65% off and 4 months for free, which also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you have to do is go to www.1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details will also be in the description. And as always, we are truly grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight. But if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help us to keep the channel running.
Thanks very much to NordVPN for continuing to sponsor the podcast. We both really, really appreciate it. Right then, Greg, Villa have made some sales in the last week or so. Cameron Archer has departed for Sheffield United, and Aaron Ramsey came on against Villa yesterday for Burnley. He's also left the building. I believe you've got some information on why Villa have done this.
Yeah, it's been widely discussed, hasn't it, amongst supporters as whether Villa are making the right decisions in moving on Aaron Ramsey, a player who clearly has been a project at Villa for some time, and Cameron Archer, striker who a lot of Villa fans had wanted to succeed at Villa, hadn't they? There was a real push for him to be in the team and have a chance. And obviously Keenan Davis and Jadon Philogene, players who are a little bit not as highly rated. Davis, obviously, he's sort of past it as a Villa player now, isn't he? He was never going to feature, but Philogene, somebody who'd done really well in pre-season, and was expected to feature this year. But what I've been saying for some time, that FFP is obviously an issue for Villa that they have to address, like at every other club in the division. So Villa had pretty much two options this summer. Now, I thought, from what I was reporting previously, that there would be an unexpected sale, somebody that would have to be moved on for a considerable amount of money to help balance the books. And it was my understanding that was being considered earlier in the year, leading up to the summer. And now the reason I know that is because when Burnley came in for Aaron Ramsey in January, they wanted a permanent deal, or a loan deal with a view to a permanent deal. And Villa said, absolutely no chance. We are not considering selling this guy. So he went on loan to Middlesbrough, had a decent time there, picked up an injury towards the back end, but then came back to Villa. Now something changed at some point where Villa decided to move on some of these younger players and insert the buybacks into the deal. Now, buybacks are nothing new. We've seen Manchester City doing it for some years. The likes of James Trafford's gone to Burnley with a buyback inserted in the deal. So for Burnley,
Douglas Luiz did it, didn't he?
Douglas Luiz, I mean, there are others, aren't there? Manchester City have been doing it for some time, but what we haven't really seen is a club of Villa's size, a team that are sort of trying to get into the top six, but have been sort of on the outskirts for a couple of years. We haven't seen a club doing that, moving on their young players at such a premium. Archer's going for big money, Ramsey's going for relatively big money, and inserting the buyback. And I think it's something. I think first of all, it's a clever idea, because what will happen is Villa will bank the money almost immediately, and that allows them then to buy your Pau Torres and your Moussa Diabis and spread that cost over 4 or 5 years. So the money comes back in immediately, but the money that they're paying out is spread over a longer period of time. And look, we've seen Chelsea doing it to a more extreme extent. But I think what we're going to see is that more clubs that are trying to fall in line with FFP will probably start to copy Villa's system if they have enough good youngsters to move on. The Ramsey deal for me was probably one that I think it's a good deal, because Ramsey's never featured for Villa in the Premier League. So for me, they're not really losing anything. They're not taking a player out of the first team and effectively losing him. So £14 million, okay, it's a little bit low, but the reason that it is low is because Villa have to take into consideration the buyback. Now, if they sell him for a much higher fee, then the buyback's going to obviously be an even higher fee in the
I think that's
future.
still a lot. I'd say they've probably still overpaid, bearing in mind
Do you
what
think?
he's actually done. I would say
I
so.
think
14 million plus add-ons for someone who's had a couple
yeah.
of half seasons in the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's good money for Villa, but having spoken to people within the industry as well, they think that Burnley have got a relatively good deal for £14 million. But as I say, the reason it's a little bit low, according to some people, is because of the buyback issues. It's if Villa want to be able to control his future to a degree, they had to come to an agreement, and that's why that deal took so long to complete. The Premier League had to approve it, and Villa have got a framework now in place where they can do this deal probably a little bit quicker. In terms of the contracts and what the buybacks mean. It's why Cameron Archer moved to Sheffield United a little bit quicker. Jadon Philogene hasn't gone through to Hull yet, has
No,
it?
not
But
yet.
we are expecting it. There are plenty of other clubs actually interested in Philogene. So whether any come in and try and hijack that bid, we'll wait and see. But I think in general, it's good for Villa. They're getting money back in immediately. Whether it's good for the young players, I'm not sure. I think typically, if you're a young player and you're training at a high level club, which Villa are now, you get better training, you get better coaching, you work under better facilities. But if you're moving to a Premier League team and getting games, you're getting the minutes, aren't you? And look, that might help your development a little bit better. So we will see how that evolves in the future. But what I do think we will see is more clubs adopting this role, because it feels very much like an overseas approach. We see a lot of buybacks in Spanish and Portugal contracts, don't we? We see that with foreign players, and it certainly feels like Villa have got that element to them now, with obviously Monchi there, Emery in charge, and a little bit more sort of Spanish foreign thinking in the recruitment areas.
I think, if the choice is get rid of those two or those three, if Philogene goes through as well, or sell Douglas
Emi
Luiz,
Martinez, yeah,
do what you're doing, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm really refreshed by it. I think it's really, really clever. And I will say as well, you've spoke about this a number of times on this show. The way they've cherry-picked the low moves of players has worked really well. I actually think these two moves is kind of the same thing. I think Ramsey's going to go and work under company. And I know, they were brilliant yesterday, but I think they'll get better as the season goes on. They started slowly in the Championship with his methods last season as well. I think Ramsey's going to get a lot of football for Burnley, playing in a particular style, which I think will be really useful for him in the development of his game. And Archer's going to go to Sheffield United, and he's going to play every week. He's going to be their number 9, which again, is going to be huge for his development. And I think he'll score goals for Sheffield United. I'm not might not be talking like 10, 15 goals or anything like that, but I think he will score goals for Sheffield United. I think they're two really clever low moves, and if Villa want to bring them back, which they might not, they'll have the option to do it for probably a little bit more than what they sold them for. But I think it's the way you've spoken about FFP and the way the sales go onto the book straight away. I think that's the pivotal thing there for Villa, and I think it's smart. I really do. I'm really, really impressed with the club at the moment and what they're doing. So fair play. I saw Jacob Ramsey actually yesterday, was sitting not far from me, come to watch his brother in the game yesterday. Also wore a similar outfit to what I wore on Saturday night, which I found quite refreshing and nice.
Quite worrying that is because he's only 20 years old, Dan. So
we're
an old man now.
Is it worrying for him or is it worrying for me? Unsure.
Yeah.
Unsure.
I think you're trying to hold on to your youth a bit too much.
Definitely am. Definitely have been for a long time, Greg.
With Aaron, I think moving to Burnley, I think it would have been a day of mixed emotions for him yesterday. It would have been great to make your Premier League debut, of course.
Weird,
but also very, very weird against Villa. Look, it's no secret that it was his dream to play for Villa, to play alongside his brother Jacob. But look, it's no real slight on him. It's no it's not fair to say Jacob's better than him or Jacob's developed quicker than him or anything like that, because, you know, as I've said in previous pods, Aaron was actually the one that was really fancied when he was younger, and actually at a very young level. Jacob was only kept on because Aaron was so good, which sounds pretty mad now. But when you think of actually Jacob's introduction into the Villa team, it was when they were a championship team. So the route into the first team then was a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And he's obviously, you know, done brilliant things, kicked on, and rightly deserves his place now in the team. But for Aaron, it's just a little bit difficult for a player to break in when Villa are signing Yuri Tielemans, for example, to play on the bench. To start on the bench, you know, it's so difficult to break in as a youngster now. The one we will need to keep an eye on now is Timmy Rugbunam, still out injured and might be for a little bit more time. But when he's back available, he will, you know, add another bit of competition to the midfield, and could be somebody who's used more often in that more attacking midfield role rather than a deep line one. So
Yeah, played there, didn't he, at the end of the season?
Yeah, and I think he sort of favours that role as well. So somebody to keep an eye on to.
Okay, then, Greg, let's finish with your new feature. We haven't actually come up with a name for it yet. What are we going? What are we going to go with? A view from the press box, was it?
Not a view from the press box. I think Pressbox Archive, something
Yeah.
like that. I just think it's nice to give some of our listeners a bit more insight into some of the inner workings at Villa and some of the things that go on behind the scenes that you know, they might not know too much about, or incidents that just don't get reported. And you know, time has now passed, so we can go into a bit more detail about them. So yeah, each week we're going to sort of spend 5 minutes at the end of the pod just going back through a memory of mine from covering a game at Villa, from doing an interview with somebody, or you know, having a conversation with a player or whatever. But the one I want to start with now, you've got to bear with me a little bit, because 2016-17 was a bit of a depressing season.
Brilliant
but
time.
I think when you look back on these dark times, which, let's be honest, they were at Villa during that period, it's important to realise that not every employee or player at that time was a bad egg or crap at his job. Which brings me on to Tommy Elphick, who I think as a player had ups and downs at Villa, but as a person was a really important part of it at the time. And it was after a 0-0 draw at Derby, which I don't know if you remember that, Dan, early into the first championship season.
I do. It was an absolute stonker of a game. Di Matteo. It was like this is just like, what is going on there in the championship? I never expected to see Villa in the championship. Not only are we in the championship, we're really bad as well.
Do you know what? I honestly can't remember anything from the game other than I think Ross McCormack hit the bar. That's all I can remember from the game. There wasn't.
I remember
much.
having a bet on Gary Gardner to score, and he nearly scored. I think. I
He hit the post as well. Yeah. But actually, it's refreshing my mind this. But yeah, we're not going to talk about the game, thankfully, because it was a 0-0 board draw. But after the game, we were, me and
I think Kozak came on in that game. You know,
did he?
Possibly. I'd have to check. While you talk, I'll check.
So I'm going to talk about the moments after the game anyway. We were exiting the stadium or exiting the press, the media room, and we bumped into Tommy Elphick actually on the way out. Now, usually journalists who walk past players will try and ask a player for a couple of minutes to do an interview with them and get some thoughts. But it was actually the other way around. Elphick kind of pulled me and my colleague from another paper aside and said, "Look, lads, you're the guys that cover the club every week. This is going to be a really difficult season for us now. We need a bit of help, you know, externally. So anything you can do to sort of help us." Now, as a local reporter, you always try and take the positive line from things and try and build up some positivity as and when you can. At times, you've got to do your job. You can't dress things up nicely when they're going wrong. And at that point, sadly, they weren't. But what just struck me is that I genuinely can't remember in my career any other player taking a moment out like that to try and say, look, to try and just think a little bit deeper and about the bigger picture for the team, and think we're doing everything we can, even though the results aren't showing it on the pitch. But if there's any little extra 1% that me as a captain can help get from elsewhere, I'm going to try and do that. And I just thought, you know, that was a real measure of the man. And so many people speak about Elphick and how they liked working with him and his time at Villa. And look, it was a poor period for Villa, but I just think it's good to highlight good people, and he was certainly one of those. And the thought came back when I was watching Bournemouth versus Tottenham on Saturday,
He's on a
actually,
big guy, isn't he?
and Elphic's still a part of the coaching team at Bournemouth. So, yeah. But there'll be more of these. We'll go into a bit more detail in the weeks ahead, and we'll have more sort of memories from my interactions with Villa players and stuff.
Yeah, Elphic's, I still speak to Tommy. He's a lovely, lovely guy. Like, loved Villa as well. Loved being at Villa, and I've worked with him a couple of times. And he's just such a top bloke. And the way he speaks about it, he's doing really well at Bournemouth as well. Already like a Premier League assistant manager / coach. Like, testament to the man. Really, I was right about
play.
I was right about it.
Yeah.
He came on. He came on for Rudy Gusted in the 28th minute.
Wow.
And then got subbed off in the 83rd minute for Andre Green. It's probably the last time he played. But that team that day, Galini in goal, back four, Bakuna, Elphick, Chester, Sissoko. Midfield four of Jordan Ayew, Westwood, Gardner and Grealish. And then Gusted and McCormack up front. Jordan Amavi came on that day as well.
Yeah,
And we had Mika Richards on the bench, Alan Hutton, Nathan Baker, Mark Budd. Good times.
It was a while back now, but it just shows, doesn't it, how times can change and how you got to enjoy the good moments that are now following.
2 former Villa players in the Derby squad that day as well. Goalkeeper played and striker on the bench.
Carson?
Yep, good knowledge.
Striker on the bench?
Yeah.
Came on.
Yeah, bloody hell, Greg.
Oh, wow. I actually remember this game.
Unbelievable.
I actually remember this game.
I thought you might say Vyman or something. I didn't think you'd come out with Darren Benker's Vyman.
I'm all right at something.
Unbelievable. Well done, Greg. I wouldn't have got, if you'd have asked me that question before I looked, I would have got the goalkeeper, but I wouldn't have got Darren Ben. Would not have got that. Well done, Greg. Global Gregg Evans with the memory as well. Enjoyed that. That was good. It is good to look back at times when we were crap, because obviously we're not crap now.
Yeah, so. and look, every memory's not going to be about when we were crap.
No. But
just
probably 90% of them will be, I would say.
We'll see.
That's how my memory works with it anyway. Anyway, thanks ever so much to Greg for joining me on the 1874 the podcast today. As I've said, it's acted as a little bit of a match reaction. I don't want to just churn out like a podcast and then a post match on the same day. It's just not worthwhile. It's not worth anyone's time. So we've done it within the podcast. Subscribe to the channel with your post notifications on, and give the video a like and a comment as well. Please do subscribe if you're not subscribed, because it does help us grow as a channel. And check out the NordVPN deal as well if you do want to be a part of that, because it's really, really helpful. If you want to watch as much football as possible like I do, then this enables you to do it. So, yeah, go and check out that NordVPN deal. I'll be back with a match preview at some point with Dave Reid ahead of the Liverpool. Oh, no, we've got the Hibs game, haven't we? We'll preview the Hibs game at some point this week. I'll get a show done. We'll look at that. Maybe get Jacob back on to do that. Again, I enjoyed talking to him last week. Check out all Greg and Jacob's good stuff on The Athletic as well. Have a good bank holiday Monday, and up the Villa.